Yeah, I just don't want to forget to start the recording. On which one? Well, I'm not sure if Nancy heard back from him.
Oh, really?
I don't think Nancy heard back from him. Oh, okay. Yep, Andrew.
Okay.
That's gonna change the order. We're gonna do 228 first. We're gonna do 228 first.
Oh, instead of the amendments?
Yeah,
Okay, sure.
yeah, since everyone's here for that one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Everyone.
That's,
Yeah. Well,
he's not like that.
he's not late yet. It's only 6:29. Right? I hate it when.
Big trips don't stop. More trips. Just for Vegas.
I'm going to Chicago tomorrow morning, going to Spain. He's gone all over the world. I know, yeah. I haven't been on a trip in a long time. Right? Like 3 weeks? No, I'm gonna miss planning session and council.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Oops.
You're in charge.
Yeah. It's ready. Where are you going, Andrew? Yeah. Big trip? Where are you going? Big-ish trip. I've never been to Montreal either. Been to Vancouver. Yeah. Oh, almost. They were like one of the first cities that allowed like safe areas for drugs. You know, like yeah, yeah, yeah. It was okay. Yeah, it's okay. Montreal. What are you gonna do in Montreal? Yeah. Oh good. Yeah. Oh good. Will it be warm? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. I know. We could start. Yeah. Mhm.
Should I wait or what? Oh, there you go, open forum. We have anything to yammer on an open forum?
For the report.
Okay, no, I can waste some time and say we're gonna have a committee meeting on trees. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. I call to order the regular planning commission meeting for the month of May. If you're listening to the meeting via Zoom, you need to raise your hand. in order to be recognized to speak. When it's your turn to speak, you will be elevated to be able to speak. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Lasky. Commissioner Burke.
Here.
We're both here.
Chair Carapiet,
Here.
Vice Chair Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. I also want to remind all commissioners to speak closely into your microphone so those in the audience can hear us clearly. Item B is the open forum. This is an opportunity for any citizen to briefly address the Planning Commission and any matters appearing on this agenda that are not agendized for discussion. Upon being recognized by the chair, please state your name and limit your oral statement to no more than 3 minutes. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or commission consideration will be agendized for further discussion at a later meeting. Are there any commissioners have anything to add? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none. Anyone on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
Okay. I'd also like to, at this point, announce that we're going to have a change in our agenda. And we are going to listen to Project 5228 Beach Road first, and then we will listen to item number 4, the amendments to the city zoning ordinance. Are there any reports from any commissioners? I'd like to let everyone know that we had a subcommittee formed to discuss our tree ordinance. And we're going to be working with City Council and having a meeting to share with them the thoughts that we had. Marcia, is there anything you want to add?
When we present it to the Planning Commission, we can go over all of them. We're trying to combine quite a few policies, so.
Okay. Thank you. Does staff have any reports?
No reports.
So we're going to have another change to the agenda. We're going to listen to 228 Beach first, and then we'll have to do the consent calendar. Okay. So can we please have a staff report? And I'll explain why we are doing that, because Kevin Burke is recused from listening to 215, and we wouldn't have a forum of 4 in order to approve it. So, and our last commissioner is running late and will be here momentarily.
All right. Thank you, Chair Carapiet and members of the Planning Commission. For your consideration this evening is an application for design review, variance, and revocable license to construct new stair access to an existing dock at 228 Beach Road. The subject parcel is located on a 21,000 square foot lot that slopes east towards Belvedere Cove. In 1975, the property received approvals to construct a new pier, dock, stair, and walkways within the city-owned tide lot, commonly referred to as the Strip. Facing Belvedere Cove to the east, the site contains structures on both private and public property. On private property, the site contains a concrete patio, concrete walkway, and wood steps. On the city-owned tide lot, structures include the concrete path.
Sammy, could you wait for a minute? Our screens aren't on.
Oh.
Another- There you go.
Not of the presentation.
Yes, they're all working. Thank you. Go ahead.
Facing Belvedere Cove to the east, the site contains structures on both private and public property. On private property, the site contains a concrete patio, concrete walkway, and wood steps. On the city-owned tide lot, structures include the concrete path, wood steps, and retaining walls. The site has been subject to at least 2 landslides as well. The project proposes to demolish the existing concrete walkways and steps on both the private and city property and construct a new set of wood stairs and landings that would run from private property onto the city tide lot, shown here in blue. Additionally, the project would replace the concrete patio on private property with a new 5-inch thick concrete slab. The proposed stairs and landings would be built on piers above existing grade, creating a total of 35 cubic yards of net soil off-haul. The stairs and landings would range in height from at grade to 7 feet above grade, with the tallest portions on city property below the existing retaining walls. The proposed stairs and landings will be made of pressure-treated redwood and galvanized wire railings. The project requests a variance to allow a 19 square foot portion of the steps to exceed 4 feet in height within the rear yard setback. Additionally, the project requests a revocable license to allow new private improvements within the city-owned tide lot. A revocable license for private use of public right-of-way may be granted in the discretion of city council when there is some benefit to the public. As a gift to the public, the Belvedere Land Company conveyed shoreline property along Belvedere Cove to the city in 1896, commonly referred to as a strip. The deed places a series of restrictions on the use of the city-owned tide lot. 2 of these restrictions provide the following: that no private structure other than private wharves, boathouses, or bathing houses shall ever be permitted, and none shall be added to those pre-existing. And the strip shall be improved, preserved, and maintained perpetually by the town as a public park and waterfront for all the people of the town, and no structure thereon shall impede the free passage of pedestrians from one end of the strip to the other. Staff notes that the applicant's design is in response to current site conditions and that many of the design review and all of the variance findings are satisfied. However, the proposed structures conflict with the Belvedere Land Company deed and administrative policy manual, which restricts new structures from being permitted within the strip. Staff suggests the Planning Commission consider whether the project is consistent with the city's administrative policy manual and Belvedere Land Company deed, and provide direction to the applicant and property owner to either redesign or return with an appropriate resolution. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sammy. Does anyone have questions for staff at this time?
I have a question.
Sure.
There have been a couple landslides on this property in the city, owned part of the property, and I'm curious about just liability. If somebody were to be injured, if those stairs had fallen on somebody, would that be the responsibility of the city? If somebody is trying to walk there and they're tripping over
Yeah.
stairs or something that's fallen.
There is an existing RL that was approved in 1975. I don't know the answer because when that RL was approved in 1975, there was no exhibit associated with it. I think the RL called out stairs and a path. So I'm not sure where that liability would lie.
Kevin?
And so the RL, so does the dock have a lease or no?
The dock has a lease.
And does that go through 2039?
I don't know do you know when it expires?
I mean, according to.
It's 50-year, it's another 50-year leases.
Right, but I think 11.8.4 says that dock lease terms, they were going to all be set to expire on the same date in 2039. I'm curious, it wasn't anywhere in the materials.
That sounds right. I know a few years ago, the city wasn't following up with dock leases. And so I think we probably just put a term date on all of the leases so that then we would renew them all at the
All at
same time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it specifies here.
Yeah.
And then I had another question, just for clarity, in terms of if something that currently exists is in disrepair, it needs to be repaired. What is the point of view in terms of that? Because when I read the deed, that only specifically seemed to relate to the homes that were actually in the title lot, not any other structure. So I wasn't clear on that.
I think historically, if something's in disrepair and there is a revocable license or a lease for that, the city has approved the repairs that are comparable to what's existing there now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Marcia?
I had kind of some similar questions. On the policy and on the gift from Belvedere Land Company, it also says that the city is to maintain the strip, which is actually 5 parcels, as a public park. So is the city doing that?
In terms of maintaining it, do you mean?
I guess so, yes.
I don't think our public works crew goes out there and maintains it, but I think if there's garbage, it'll get picked up if it's accessible.
Because it kind of was one of the criteria on the land company gift that the city would continue in perpetuity maintaining as a public park. So I just wondered, didn't seem to be. And I also had a question, some of the same questions about the slides that are on city land. Does the city have any liability to repair those slides?
Maybe Andrew can help answer that question. And possibly the homeowner. I know he's had the slides and probably was involved with the city.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much about the city's general liability in that area. I think
Okay.
it probably would depend on the nature of the slide and what caused it. So I don't want to speculate as a general matter.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Can we please hear from the applicant? Oh, you have to turn it on. There's a button down on the base. This is an echo. Echo. Oh, that's the light. They had no mic. Who's on first?
I'm Roger Hartley, civil engineer for the project and representing the Murrays who are here. There are a couple of things I wanted to add to Sammy's presentation. One is that there are 3 slides on the property, not 2. And the one that it's shown on the drawing, but it's near the top, and it's the one that made it rather difficult to continue to use that access. And the other slide, one of the larger one, what precipitated this whole project was the Murray's concern that their house might come down the hill, because there's a very large slide to the south, and it has worked its way up the hill over a number of years. And so we started this project with the idea of doing something to keep their house intact if that slide continued to move. So that's shown on the drawings as a line of drilled piers and grade beams surrounding the upper walkway and the patio. So it started with that. And then, by the way, we couldn't get to the dock anymore, so we're rearranging that access. So for the benefit of those who haven't walked down there, probably all of you, right? Because it's pretty hard to access. I have some pictures of the pathway down. Not coming up. I'm not sure how to get this up. It's this one.
And then hit right
Oh, I
there.
hit that, sure.
Yeah, that share.
Okay.
There you go. And then you can make it bigger.
Full
Hitting
screen.
that box. Yeah. There you go.
So this is the very top, and it consists of a slope path with stairs. Every once in a while, concrete steps. And as you go down, just a few feet is that first slide that I mentioned, and it's covered with plastic, and it falls off almost 90 degrees. So it's impassable at that point. And then further on down, first picture is looking back up the hill at that same slide. And damage to retaining wall that has cracked over the years. And part of the upper pier and grade beam system will be to help stabilize that wall. And then continuing on down, you come to the first wooden stairs, which are in really bad shape. They're pretty rotten. These stairs start out at grade, and near the bottom, that first landing, they're approximately 8-9 feet in the air. And there's a shot looking, the one on the left is looking down to the next set of stairs, and the other one's looking back up. You can see how tall they are. Another shot from further down, looking up at the stairs, and you can see the height of them there. And the other shot is the landing of that set of stairs. And the pathway would continue onto a ramp and concrete stairs on grade. And here they are. And this one is severely washed out. In fact, the topo map done by a surveyor about 2 years ago showed this barely coming into the path. And now it's worked its way all the way across, and it's endangering that retaining wall. And I have another shot of this particular landslide that shows the severity of it. Looking down, one looking up, the same slide. So after that, the pathway transitions to a wooden ramp and stairs that finally approach the dock. And this happens to be the same location where the new stairs would be built. At this point, they're probably slightly higher than these are. And there's the bottom of the dock. And here's the beach showing the height of the dock. The dock does not impede any kind of passageway along the pathway. And because of this steep drop off of the cliff, there's just no way for anybody to access the portion of the property where we're proposing to build the stairs. Any questions about that?
Sure, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. That's hugely helpful. And I did actually go and look at the site from the water, although your pictures are much better than the ones I took. When you're thinking about the stabilization of the hill, tell me a little bit about the work that you're proposing in terms of the piers and the grade beam. Will that be enough to stabilize the hill in a satisfactory way? I mean, so you were obviously the owners or the applicant is concerned about the house stability and so forth. Is this enough?
Well, we're working with a geotechnical engineer on it, and that was his recommendation. And he seems to think that will work. I think a lot of the areas where the soil has slipped away, that was a weak overlay of soil, and it's down to fairly hard rock at that point. At least that would be the case on that large slip out that's affecting the house. This lower landslide where the ramp was, I see that continuing to move. There's just, I don't know where that one's going to stop. So part of the plan for rearranging this was to avoid those two areas of slides. There doesn't seem to be any practical way to rebuild the slides and repair them without massive expense and materials and changing the landscape. So the plan is just to avoid those areas and reroute it the best way we can to get down as fast as possible and create the smallest footprint.
And then the piers, I think 23, 4, and 5 or over 22. Those are, I think, related to the stairway. So those will be, if there is any movement down below, will those be sufficient to keep those stairs in place as best I mean,
I
you know,
I didn't get all that.
so you have piers, I believe, for the stairs that are going down towards the dock,
Yes,
and will those be sufficiently embedded in bedrock, I guess, to
Yeah, the
keep them stable
criteria
with
by
any
the
other movement?
geotech is 8 feet of embedment into bedrock, wherever that is. So we don't know how deep all these are going to be until we start drilling.
Yeah. But so you feel that that should be sufficient to keep the new proposed stairway stable?
Yeah.
And then one other question is, I was reading the geotech report that was done by Herzog, and I think it was a different situation. It sounds like the applicant was going to repair the existing access to the dock because they had a lot of other recommendations in terms of stabilizing the hill. And so I just wanted to understand, is that the case that it was a different project back then in 21 versus it is today?
I've spoken to him about expanding it to the other areas of the property, and he seemed to be okay. But I think at the point in time when we get a permit, he would be on board to monitor the drilling activity.
Okay, thank you.
Marcia?
Hello. So do the new stairs impede the passage of the public walking on the strip?
Well, no, because there are portions where you can walk below the stairs. So there's,
And you would walk below
headroom
the
for that.
dock, really?
but it's sort of an odd question because nobody's going to be there. It's almost impossible to get there without coming from above. You can't get there from the water. So, but no, I don't see it having any effect on the passage or the use intended for that property.
And people would still be able to get under the existing dock if they were walking on the strip?
We're not
which is
making any
the
changes to
intent.
the dock.
Yeah.
It's what it is, and you can walk under it, yes.
And one of the reasons I understand that you were redesigning the stairs to the existing design is because where the stairs currently are is over a slide. So you really had to redesign the stairs in a different area, which ends up actually being on less city land than before. Is that correct?
That's right. That path I walked you down there was stretched out. It's a much longer way to get there.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it a flatter approach. And we're getting there more quickly, so it's less of a footprint, but it's a steeper way to get down there. And we would make it less steep if we could, but in order to avoid those other two landslides, there are very limited areas where we could drill a pier and get the support we needed.
And are you considering when the project is finished to actually add maybe landscaping on the hillside?
I'm sorry, have what?
Landscaping.
So she's talking about the area kind of around the landslide where it was
Mhm.
a walkway to put some plants.
That would hold the hillside.
We could do that. We haven't talked about exactly a landscape plan, but I've noticed that the echium grows really well on that hillside, and
Mhm.
it grows quite tall, and it would do a good job of screening.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about helping stabilizing the hillside with landscaping. Also, you are, of course, putting in drainage so the water can get off the hillside.
We're not changing any drainage patterns. We're not picking up any drainage, and we're not needing to disperse it. So no, there's no drainage plan.
Does the way the drainage is now impact the slide area?
In terms of erosion down the pathway causing the slide, I don't know. I really don't know the history of the slides when they happened.
Mhm.
Given the geology there, I think they started from below and worked their way up the hill.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I had a follow-up just based on that.
Sure.
Can we-
No, go ahead.
I just want to go back to the question I asked. So again, looking back at the Herzog report, because Marcia touched on this, is that for other parts of the hill, they were proposing metal netting, which you would embed potentially landscaping in to hold the hill in place and or shotcrete. They did talk about drainage or ensuring that the drainage was sufficiently removing pooling of water. I guess my biggest concern is, are you proposing enough to ensure that the hill will be stable? Because I think that's the first priority, and then fixing or repairing the stairs is the second priority. I mean, those two things need to get done, but I mean, you don't want to have a great set of stairs and then have the rest of the hill slide down.
Yeah, I think some of his references to drainage are boilerplate for all geotechs and would apply to different types of construction. We're not building any that would change the drainage pattern. We're just restoring the patio up above. And tell you the truth, I don't know exactly where that drains now. It has settled a lot, so my guess is it's sheet flowing off the hill. We're changing the level of it to make it level again. And at that point, we would pick up some drainage and disperse that. But that's the only thing I can think of. The pier, the foundation for the stairs going down there are nothing but a pier and a little slab, so it has no impact on water flow.
And I think the drainage probably would come in when they brought the engineering plans and with the building plans. The engineer would, whichever engineer it is, would specify if there needed to be additional drainage or whatever. And that would happen at the, when they bring the building permit in. Because an engineer's not going to do something that causes a big problem when they put their stamp on it. Good.
Good, thank you.
Ashley? My question is Alex, did you have a question?
Yeah, and it may have been answered already, but I think one simple way of looking at this application, as I understand it right now, this is really an application just for the access down to the dock. It's not an application to do remedial stabilization of the slopes. Is that a correct understanding of it?
Slope stabilization is way beyond what anybody wants to address with this, including the city of
Okay.
Belvedere.
But are the owners comfortable with the geotechnical situation as it exists on the site? It seems like some of your improvements, like the patio and so forth, are in a state of movement. And so I'm just trying to clarify, what the scope of this particular application is. And it doesn't seem like some of those dynamic situations on the site are part of this application. Is that a correct?
Well, that upper
understanding?
row of piers and grade beams is intended to assure that everything uphill of that will stay there, which is the house. That's their prime importance and the whole reason for doing this. Rebuilding the slope is not part of.
Okay, so there is an element of stabilization that's sort of
stabilizing the
independent
house,
from the
not-
site
not
access.
Stabilizing anything downhill of that
Okay,
area.
and as an engineer, you feel that's the right approach for the property?
Well, I just think it's impractical to take on rebuilding that hillside. We're talking millions of dollars and bringing huge amounts of material in by barge.
Well, yeah, and I'm not an engineer, so I wasn't suggesting that the hillside should necessarily be replaced or rebuilt to what it was, but one, in a dynamic situation where the earth is moving, it seems like a little bit of a concern. So I'm just trying to clarify what the extent of this application is. So I think what you've answered is you're stabilizing the house at the top, and then you're building the access
You'd
down.
have to ask the Murrays, but I think it probably is a concern. Ongoing erosion that may affect even the new stairs.
Long term, okay. Thank you.
I have a question, just you're following up on that. So is there anything that can be done to prevent further sliding in those three areas that have been identified?
Further erosion?
Yeah.
I haven't really looked at that, but I think not. I mean, if you were to take a close look at some of those slides, you have to start at the bottom and work your way up, and it's just a huge project. Possibly there's some drainage on the old pathway going down, which is concrete, that could contribute to it. So we're removing that, and that would help the absorption of the soil and maybe stop some of the sheet flow.
Okay. I mean, I guess this goes back to the question we asked earlier about just liability if it's on city property. It sounds like we're not going to get clarity on that tonight. Is there something that can be done in terms of just like netting that can be put over those areas with planting? I mean, Marcia spoke to this. I think that when we're looking at really steep hillsides like this, we like to see a really robust landscape plan because it can really help hold things into the hill. So something to think about if it's possible to put
Well,
netting.
yes, there are things you can do with soil nails, which are drilling horizontally into the hillside and putting net on there, and then the next step would be to shotcrete it. But I'm not sure the city would like the results of that. You'd be looking at something that looks like a freeway, the large amounts of concrete showing. So I haven't considered that.
So, yeah, like Commissioner Seidel said, that what we're being asked in this application is for the repair, stabilization of the home uphill and to give new access down, and that they're not addressing the rest of the situation with the other slide areas in this application.
Right.
Is that
So
correct?
if it's helpful, I don't think that's before the commission at this point, and staff certainly doesn't have all the information it would need to make that kind of evaluation. But maybe if I could try to answer Vice Chair Johnson's question, if this commission and the city council, of course, were inclined to grant the revocable license application, certainly that license would include the standard indemnification provisions where the private property owner would be liable for any damage caused by the proposed project. And that's, as you know, standard for revocable licenses.
But just to clarify, that would just be the stairs, right?
Well, the stairs and the other repairs that go along with the stairs. So
Mm,
some of
but-
the,
They're saying that it's just the stairs, right? It's the piers that will hold the stairs into the hillside.
No, it's that whole area up where the helipad, the circle patio was, right below the house.
Right.
They're doing like 20 some odd
Retaining.
yeah, so there's
drill
additional,
piers and-
additional structures, exactly,
yeah.
Chair, that are part of the proposal. So
It's
it's
really
not,
two different projects. One is to stabilize the house, the other is to restore access to the dock.
Right.
Which everybody agrees, I think, is really important in terms of safety to be able to have an alternate to Beach Road.
But just to clarify, the work that's being done closer to the house is on the private property. So
It's
that's
on
the
both.
difference.
It'd
Right, when
most
you
of it's
cross
on
the line to go down
city
the hill, yeah.
property, but it worked past that. And I think that applies to, I think that's only that one. I'd have to look at the topo again.
But should we get to a point of planning commission making a recommendation to the city council and the city council evaluating a revocable license, we certainly, if the planning commission and council would like to, is add in the entire area of that strip in the revocable license. You know how we typically say landscaping, stairs, entryway. If we go down this road, then you could add in that the property owner takes on that responsibility of the slide areas in the RL. If that helps.
Shows the 3 slides better if, let's take a peek. So this is the first one, and it's actually about halfway into this pathway. And then the lower one is this one, which is come all the way up to the stone wall. And so this lower one is entirely on city property. Here's the property line across here. So this first one is on both. And same applies to this one. This is the largest one, and it comes all the way up to a retaining wall, which is fairly close to the house. So here's the line of piers, it's just above that.
Sammy, I'm looking for, I found it. Maybe not. So we don't have, you didn't give us a sample of the revocable license, right? Because we don't have the resolution. So that's why I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Okay. So then let me ask this question of staff, excuse me. The revocable license, will it be for the entire strip or will it just be for where the stairs, the area of the stairs? So what is the revocable? We don't know what the revocable license is going to look like, so we can't make a judgment.
Well, we're bringing it to you tonight as a discussion item. So with the idea to get some feedback from you guys, and then we'll presumably bring it back to the planning commission with amendments or no amendments with the revocable license. So you can see sort of the comprehensive project.
So generally speaking, when we do the revocable license in the strip, is it for the whole area of the strip or is it just for the area that's being developed? I thought with 310, we did the whole strip.
We can do the whole strip. At 242 Beach, we entered into a lease agreement. So there's different ways to approach it. And I think that's the feedback we're looking for
Oh, okay.
tonight.
That's why we're confused.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you okay? You done? More?
Yeah, for now.
Okay, I have a few questions for you. Thank you very much. The height of the stairs, we had a discussion and I asked if it was possible to lower the height of the stairs. And so I'm just going to ask it in public. Can you lower the height of the stairs in the city revocable license area, in this strip?
Yeah, it's very difficult. If I could point to this. At this point in the stairs, we are right on grade. Above that, we're below grade. I've actually dug them in to get down as low as possible. But at this point, it's also crossing a retaining wall. So we're at very close to grade on the uphill side of the retaining wall. The retaining wall is 6 feet tall. So immediately the stairs are 6 feet off the ground or more as it goes on down. And the only way to lower some of these other stairs is to turn left and try to follow the contours. And that puts us closer and closer to this slide where we can't get a foundation. So I mean, to answer your question, I don't see any option other than maybe a few inches one way or the other by doing a little bit more of this, but it's an exercise in stretching it out to use more area versus going down the shortest way possible and being a little bit higher.
Okay, thank you. Any other final questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. I'll now open it to the public. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak regarding 228 Beach? Seeing no one, is there anyone? Oh, excuse me.
Apologies for my attire. I was just downstairs in yoga. Albert Richards, I'm at 266 Beach. I've looked at the plans and I quite like them. One of the issues that we had in the old house was the weight of the hillside at the top of a slope tends to push down. And as they said, the patio has moved. And that's one of the things that helps cause slides below. And so when we build our house, we have retaining walls like they're proposing. And I think that will go a long way towards alleviating some of the downhill slide risk. We also put netting down, which has done a very good job of establishing the soil. And it's, you know, gravity is always going to be there. So, you know, slides are kind of a history here, and we can try and mitigate them as best we can. I'm not sure we'll ever eliminate them entirely along that side. But the idea of getting those piers up above, I think, will be extremely helpful. With respect to access, they're absolutely right. There's, unless you're a mountain goat, you're not going to be walking across those stairs, and you really probably need ropes and a harness to do it. So I don't think there's any impact on the access. We tend to walk along there at low tide occasionally. That's about pretty much the only time you can get that length. And this doesn't appear to affect that at all. So we've been through everything and we think it's great. And we're really pleased to see the work getting done.
Thank you.
My name is Claire McAuliffe. I live at 229 Beach Road, almost directly across the street from this project. And I've watched the difficulties with a number of projects along Beach Road, just as you have, with questions like this over the years. They come frequently, and you all handle them in the best way possible. And I'm confident that you'll do it this way too. The neighbors are very much in favor of this project to make sure that there is access for these people that is safe for them, their families, and their guests. So I hope that you'll see your way to approving this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Apologies, I forgot one thing. A data point on revocable license. For our revocable license that goes down to RDOC, it's just for the area of the stairs. It doesn't extend across the full length of the strip. So for what it's worth.
Last call. Anyone on Zoom? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I just want to add on a very personal level, having had our garage fire yesterday,
We're also sorry for you.
which could have impacted our home. And we're very thankful to our neighbor for yelling fire at midnight so that we were safe. But having the access to a dock for ourselves and for neighbors is a really critical item. So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else? Anyone on Zoom?
There's no one on Zoom.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for discussion. So can we start with you, Commissioner Seidel?
Thank you. I'm sympathetic to the project. I think having good solid access down to the beach is not just an amenity, but as one of the speakers mentioned, it's a safety issue too, I think. And, you know, it looks like you're attempting to stabilize the house at the top. That makes sense to me. I think if my main interest would be, and we're sort of in the discussion stage on this, I would appreciate seeing the application accompanied by some reasonable attempt to stabilize some of the areas. I'm not talking about something Herculean, but apparently some of the neighbors have done things with netting and planting, and some of the other commissioners mentioned that. I think I might encourage you to go back to the geotech and maybe make that part of this entire application. It might seem to be a more complete application to me. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lasky?
Because of the various slides on the property, the owner of the land is paying a lease for a dock that they're unable to access and use. And so rebuilding the stairs that are falling down the hill will allow them access to their dock. And the dock is remaining the same. It does not really impact the public access from walking the strip. The public will continue to be able to walk under the dock, and it does not impede the free passage of pedestrians. And the new plan for the stairs actually covers less of city property than the existing one now. And I can see why part of the stairs will have to be over 4 feet above grade because of it having to go over one of the existing walls. I think it's very dangerous not to stabilize the hillside by putting in piers and stairs. I already talked about the public park. So I think these exceptional circumstances of land slippage and failing retaining walls and stairs has created this situation. And so existing access is dangerous. In order to reestablish the access, stairs must be rebuilt over some of the strip while still allowing public access in order to access their leased dock. And it's also very dangerous for the public to be walking below that because of falling debris and rocks, etc. I don't think this really alters the intent of the 1895 policy, because at that time, it was possible probably to access the dock and water from the hillside walkable, the way the houses were built. They did allow boathouses and bathing houses, which of course now we probably don't have bathing houses. And they also didn't address sea level rise because that wasn't a problem at that time. So I think it's a policy that we probably need to look at. And this strip has actually not been maintained as a public park, which was also in the that policy. So I can make the findings for design review and the variance and the revocable license.
And since we're giving feedback, landscaping, did you want to make a
Oh,
comment?
yes, I think it would be good to come back with a landscaping plan because that will also further stabilize the hillside. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burke?
Yeah, thank you. And again, I'm so happy your family is safe. Sorry about the fire. I'll just cut to the chase. I mean, like Commissioner Lasky, I can make the findings across all three and support the project. I think it's pretty straightforward. However, I just wanted to give a little bit more context because not necessarily for this application, but for future applications. I think when you go back and look at the original deed that was conveyed the land to the city, and then you look at the decisions that were made in 1989 by the city council in terms of saying no new structures in the strip, you could argue that, well, this is a new structure because you're rebuilding stairs in a different place. But as Commissioner Lasky said, I think there are extenuating circumstances that make that a requirement. You have no choice but to build stairs in a different place. The reason I bring that up is if a different applicant had come in and said, hey, look, I prefer stairs over here versus where they are today, or I think it would look nicer if the stairs went this way versus that way, I think that would go against what was intended by that decision in 1989 in the original deed. So, I mean, the circumstances are forcing you to do this plan the way it's constructed. And so I appreciate that. And therefore, you have my full support. I also wanted to echo some of the comments that Commissioner Lasky said in terms of stability. I don't think that we can require an applicant to do something in the strip, that city land, in terms of stabilization. I don't think we can, and I'm not proposing that we do, but I would encourage you to look at whatever other means you can access and deploy to further stabilize the hill for your own property, but then also to ensure that this project sort of sustains itself, that you're not in 3 years back here again saying, well, another landslide actually has caused the stairs to fail again. So if there's other things that can be done, and it sounds like there are some things, maybe not, some practical things that can be done, like the netting and planting, I would certainly encourage you to consider those carefully, because I think that will just make the project that much more successful over the long run. And I think that is all I have. So again, I can make the findings for design review, the revocable license, and the variance.
Thank you. I read the staff report, very nicely done and presentation. Oh, Ashley, I forgot about you. Sorry. No, go.
I will keep it very brief. I agree with all the comments that have been made. I think it's really important when we're looking at these projects in the strip that we do so through a current day practical lens, and that's that it really can't be used as a public park very easily. I walked it and it was treacherous and very hard to do. And I think it's very reasonable for people who live there and have leases, they're paying for leases to docks, that they should be able to access it. So I support this project, and I echo what others have said about just look at the landscaping and netting and things like that, just to kind of fill in the hillside a bit. And I think it'll just make it a much better project, but I fully support this. Thank you.
Very nice. So back to me. I also want to thank all the neighbors who stood up and talked this evening, and to Ben Johnson and Barry and Kevin Kuhn, who sent in letters of support. It's always nice to have the community voice their opinion, and it helps us through making a decision sometime. I agree with what my fellow commissioners have said. I can support this project. I am a firm believer in the deed restriction on this strip, but I consider this project to be different in that it's an existing access to a dock. You have the access through some unstable land. And I think the benefit to the city is that you're taking a smaller footprint. And so I think we have a balanced project. I would also sort of echo some of my fellow commissioners in that you might want to look at doing some landscaping or netting to address some of the slide issues, especially, in areas that still have soil, because I believe the engineer said some areas don't even have soil anymore. So in the areas where there's still soil, it would be nice to see some kind of landscaping, whether it's ground cover or netting, to take place. And of course, something that is native and can thrive on its own once it's established. So, and so I could make for the findings for this project. There's a big question out there that in my mind still seems unanswered to both the applicant and to this commission is that we don't know how the revocable license is going to be handled. So that's something that needs to be resolved. And then that will answer a lot of questions that the commission has regarding the strip.
I agree. We can certainly work with the applicant and figure out which direction they'd like to go and bring it back to you guys, and it can be a discussion item.
Okay, great, perfect, thank you. So we'll put it on, we'll continue this item and put it on next month, if you're ready to go, or the soonest you're available to go. Do we need to have a motion on that?
No.
Do we need a motion, Andrew? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Okay, next item is going to be our consent calendar, item number D. The consent calendar consists of items that the Planning Commission considers to be non-controversial. Unless any item is specifically removed by any member of the Planning Commission, staff, or audience, the consent calendar will be adopted in one motion. Items removed will be considered in the sequence as they appear below. If any member of the audience wishes to have an item removed, and you're on Zoom, follow the remote meeting procedures by raising your hand. If you do not, that's that. And when you raise your hand, indicate which item you would like to have removed. After removing the item, the planning commissioner will call for comment at the appropriate time. We have 3 things on the consent calendar. The draft minutes, 215 Golden Gate, and the annual general plan and housing progress report. Does anyone wish to pull any of the items?
I need to recuse myself because I'm a neighbor to 215.
Okay, thank you. Does he get to vote on the other 2 items, though? No.
You could sever if you want, but we can just.
Okay. Did you want to pull anything? I just had a couple questions on the housing element. I'm a little discombobulated up here. Okay. That's not it. So thank you. So the question I had was, you have one infill project here. What was the infill project?
Are you looking on one of the tables?
Yeah. So it says infill housing developments, the 3rd one
Oh,
from the bottom.
I think it's 218 Bayview.
Oh,
Right, it was a vacant lot.
oh, so we
and
call
it's
that
a
an
new
infill?
unit.
Huh, okay,
I think this is all pulled from all these other tables. It's populated from 4 other tables in the entire APR.
okay.
I'll double check that and report back to you.
Okay, well, I was just curious where you do get all that information. Is that it's just in like the iWorks thing?
No,
No.
this is all populated from a multiple spreadsheet document from the state. And so we just give you this summary table because otherwise it would just,
Oh, okay.
it's a lot of information.
But
We
where do
fig-
you get, I mean, where do you get the figures?
Oh, from our records, the city records.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. I can leave it on the consent calendar. So can we have a motion for the consent calendar?
I move to adopt items 1 through 3 on the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously. You're good, Mr. Pollock, you got passed.
Should I tell her?
Thank you for your
Just
patience.
to interrupt for 1 second, sorry. There were no hands raised on Zoom from anybody that would like to pull an item.
Oh,
Just
Just for
put
the
that in the record.
okay, and anyone in the room want to pull? We can revote? No, thank you. Okay, moving on to our final item, number 4. Our zoning ordinance.
Yes, good evening, Chair Carapiet and Planning Commissioners. The item before you tonight includes a public hearing to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for larger accessory dwelling units that are deed restricted for low-income households. This change is associated with the housing element update. In January of 2023, the 6th cycle housing element was adopted and submitted to HCD. And in May of 2023, HCD sent the city a letter requesting modifications. One of the comments from HCD included that the revised housing element contain amendments to the city's zoning ordinance to better accommodate the housing units that the city is required to meet. In November of 2023, the Planning Commission discussed the proposed zoning ordinance amendments and recommended approval of the amendments to the City Council. In January of 2024, the City Council adopted those zoning amendments. Given that the city was under a tight time frame to meet HCD's requirements, a section of the intended amendments was left out of the original January 2024 amendments. As part of its revised housing element, the city proposed that ADUs will be part of the city's strategy to satisfy the RENA requirement. One of the programs in the city's housing element includes incentivizing the construction of ADUs. Staff had intended to add a section in the city's ADU ordinance that would allow for larger ministerially approved ADUs should the property owner deed restrict the ADU to low-income households as defined by Marin County. The revisions are before you tonight. We're looking for a recommendation to the city council, and I'm available for questions should you have any.
Questions for staff? Ashley?
Thank you. Do we have to require that both, if there are two ADUs proposed, if the lot is large enough that both are deed restricted? Do we have flexibility there? Can we just require that one is?
Sure.
Okay, I would make that suggestion. I think that the goal here is to incentivize more ADUs, and I wouldn't want that to be a deterrent, an inadvertent deterrent for people. So I think it would be reasonable to say, if you're going to build two, keep one deed restricted and the other one, you can do what you want. That would be my recommendation.
Well, the only thing on that is we're allowing them, then if we did, by having both deed restricted, we get twice the number of units.
I understand.
And by, so the unit that's not deed restricted, they would not be able to get the additional square footage.
I think that's okay.
Comments?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I had a backup question, which is what is the issue or problem we're solving for? So I think we're trying to incent people to build more ADUs, but based on our current approach, do we know I mean, what metrics are we using to know whether or not it's working or not working, and or if this is going to be enough to incent people to change behavior? I mean, it sounds like a good deal. I mean, so if you look at it
Yeah.
on face value, but it's just like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it should be 3 ADUs. I mean, is this really
Well-
going to move the needle, or?
I think the incentive here is a square footage, right? If somebody wants to build an 800 square foot ADU, they would, most people would want a larger ADU, right? There's sort of more bang for your buck between 800 and 1,200 square feet. The cost of construction is not that much greater.
Right.
So I think the real incentive is the 1,200, and then we're requiring that deed restriction to low income. So if you want that extra square footage, we're asking, or we're requiring that it be deed restricted.
Yeah, it's just, but what I fear is that we don't know enough about what's going to motivate people. So it might be motivating to have a bigger ADU, but it's not so motivating if the bigger ADU is deed restricted. And so by putting the deed restriction on it, does it sort of cancel out the incentive or the motivation that a larger size gives? And I don't know the answer to it. It just, I think
just sort of anecdotally, the people I've talked to here find, so first of all, every ADU is deed restricted, right? This is just one of the components of the ADU that's 1,200 square feet. It would be required to be deed restricted to low income. So there's other components of the deed.
So can I
And so,
just
so
make
the
a,
people I've talked to are fine deed restricting it to low income.
but it's 1,000 for one unit or one bedroom or less.
Right.
And for 2 bedroom or more, it would be 1,200. It's not
Correct.
1,200 across the board.
It's 1,000 for one bedroom.
Right. 1,200.
1,200 two bedroom.
Does,
If it's
Good.
not deed restricted, the owner can charge more rent, correct?
Correct.
So it might be better to have, as Ashley mentioned, one deed restricted and one not. It might give more incentive to the owner to build
Then
more.
why are we giving them more square footage? Then we can just say they have 2 ADUs and they can both be 850. or 800
The
ministerially.
incentive to deed restricted at a certain amount, right? Isn't that part of it?
Yeah, 30% of the Marin.
So I think if you were only to allow one to be deed restricted, you could have one ADU, deed restricted to low income, 1,000 square feet for one bedroom, 1,200 for a two bedroom. To have the second ADU not deed restricted to low income, you would get 800 square foot ADU
Ministerially approved.
ministerially. And if
So
you wanted more, you could come to the planning commission for a conditional use permit.
but what if somebody wanted to deed restrict both of them
That would be
to
okay.
be able to get the 1,000? Would we allow that? I mean, can we
Give them the option.
give them the option that they could just do one deed restricted and they would only get one unit at the additional square footage? But if they did two, they could get both of them as at the higher
They could
square
have
footage?
two 1,200 deed
1,000 or
restricted
1,200, yeah.
to low income. I think that's what we're saying now. That's what's written in the code.
I know, but Ashley is proposing that we only do one. So
Right.
what, I mean, in the world of choices, isn't it better to give more choices to people? Because someone might say, I only want one deed restricted unit, but then somebody else might want that additional square footage and it doesn't really bother them that they have two income restricted units. So why would we not give them a choice? That you could have up to two. I don't know how to word it. You could have up to an additional ADU.
It by definition, if it's 1,200 square feet, it's deed restricted to 30%. So I think that's
But
No, that's for a two bedroom.
right. And so, I'm sorry, it's 1,000, right? So if somebody wants 1,000 square feet, it has to be deed restricted.
all ADUs are deed restricted. If
To
someone
this
wants,
specific,
Income.
that's what I mean. I'm sorry, to this specific,
no, if somebody wants 1,000 square foot ADU right now, it would have to follow the deed restriction section of the code, which does not have the
Income.
portion of low income. They would have to come to the planning commission for a conditional use permit.
So when we did the zoning changes, it wasn't described properly. They forgot to put in the low income part of it. So that's what we're doing here, is changing it to what the intention was, that they would get the more square footage for a deed restricted unit.
yeah, no, I understand. I guess I want to address the HCD comments. I think that's what this is doing, but I also want to look at this from the homeowner's perspective. And it's a bit of a balancing act. I think that we want to incentivize people, and I wouldn't want this to get in the way of more housing. And I know we want more low income specifically, but I think more housing in general is still a good thing. So I just wouldn't make it more flexible for people. I wouldn't make it a requirement. I would make it an option.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, having options
Yeah,
for people
so
that they can
that's
have
fine. I
one
just-
or two.
It shouldn't say that you have to deed restrict both.
Right, but we have to get it so that if somebody does want that extra square footage, would need to
They have
deed
to.
restrict.
Yes.
Is there any data that exists in terms of cities that have done this successfully, or one might think of it or view it as successful?
Not that I know of.
I'm
I
sure
think
there- I'm sure there-
something else to consider might be that we've already, I'm not sure if it's explicitly in our housing element for HCD, but we've been discussing it as the housing working group committee. And Pat, I don't know if it is a program in our housing element. I'd have to look that up,
It is,
that we are putting this deed restriction on the units.
right. And it was supposed to be for
And it
low
was
income
supposed to happen in January. It was just a
oversight.
mistake. Yeah,
The low income part of it got left out.
right.
So while we're still on this, as far as addressing choices, I think that we should also include JADUs in this, because somebody might want a second JADU instead of two ADUs. And then they would they would then also have the choice if they wanted to deed restrict both or just one. And then, of course, we have to give them an incentive to do it, and the incentive is more square footage. So I think a JADU, an additional 100 square feet, would be an incentive to someone to add a second JADU. So I don't know why we don't have ADU or JADU on these over 15,000 square foot lots. And again, it addresses more choices.
To allow for 600 square foot AD,
600,
JADU.
Yeah,
Can you have a J ADU and two ADUs?
yes,
Two
you
ADUs are
have the
deed
right to an ADU and a JADU. So if you have a, is your lot 15?
It's big enough, but.
Okay, so you come in and you could build an ADU and you could build a second ADU or a second JADU and a JADU. And you would decide by size which one would be deed restricted.
So theoretically, could a property owner come in and say, if they had a very big lot, I'm going to have 4 additional
No.
housing units?
No, it's an or, it's not an and.
So you can have a JADU and 2 ADUs, so you could have 3 as the max, or
3 would be the max.
the max?
So it'd either be
No, I get it. I
2
get it.
ADUs and an ADU or 2 ADUs and 1
Yeah,
JADU.
yeah, yeah.
Did I say that right? I don't think I did.
So it would be somewhere, I mean, it doesn't say, or does it say in the code somewhere that there's a max? Because if you add that,
Yes.
if you add the
Oh.
option to have 2 JADUs, if they're deed restricted to low-income housing, and you also offer 2 ADUs that are deed restricted, it's.
No, they get a choice of one
have to-
additional ADU
you have to be clear
or
about that.
one, that's why I think the wording should be one additional ADU or JADU. And you can either,
So you get a total of 2 additional units, you
Right.
pick.
and then if they want to do the second ADU deed restricted, they would use this next section that we're going to talk about.
And it's a matrix. I mean, there's JADUs and ADUs, and there's accelerators, if you will, that could be either about increasing the square footage or increasing the quantity.
So here's another point of discussion. So I'm not sure where the magic figures of 1,000 or 1,200 came in. So I think we need to kind of think a little bit about what we're giving away. And we know what we're getting, but what we're giving away. So is everyone comfortable with those figures of going from 800 to 1,000 and going from 1,000 to 1,200? Because 1,200 is pretty significant.
I used Perplexity to sort of scrape the internet and see what the average. Well, hey, look, data is our friend. And the average ADU ranges from, the average 1-bedroom ADU ranges from 500 to 850. And then the average 2-bedroom ranges from 600 to 1,200.
Well, 1,200 is the max the state will allow.
But in California, I mean,
Because
that's
I was
insane in
surfing the
California.
internet too, and that's what they said.
Yeah, I didn't see that piece, but yeah, so
So
I'm fine with what's been specified.
with 1,012. Anyone else have an opinion?
I do. Those sizes seem fine. They seem conventional to me.
Okay, so also in the 30%, this HCD defines the low income as the gross income. No, for then 30% of the gross income. So we should put gross income in there so there's not a confusion of what income we're talking about, net, gross.
Okay.
And then we go to the next section, which is, anyone have any other thoughts or comments on section C?
The only other question I had is, I think it's just a clarification more than a question, is if you do build let's say one of these ADUs that are larger in size and are restricted, deed restricted to low income housing, you can still just let them sit there and use them for your own purposes. I mean, there's nothing that would force you to rent them or put them into the market.
That is correct.
Okay. So let's go on to B, section B of 19.79050, maximum and minimum unit size. The only thing I had to say was when city council passed it, they had, and in this, I'm more concerned about in this section than over the 15,000. But they had an item number 2, which was an attached accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 1,000 square feet or 50% of the existing living area of the primary dwelling unit, whichever is less. Existing living area means the interior and habitable area of the primary dwelling unit includes basements and attics, but does not include garages or any accessory structures. So I thought about that one, and I'll use myself for an example. So we have an 1,800 square foot house. If I wanted to build 1,000 square foot ADU onto my house, it's bigger than 50%. So I think that clause has some use that they shouldn't be able to go over more than 50% because we're actually really creating a over a 50% increase in the structure. And I don't think it affects that many people.
Okay, should the commission wants,
Right, so.
I thought we
It's still already, but it's still, if I may just clarify, Chair Carapiat, so you're referring to an existing code provision, is that right? The 50%
That
cap?
was passed in January.
Right, so I don't think we're changing that.
But it's
no, I
It-
think we did remove it. because
it's
we
just
thought-
not there. It should be there.
We removed it because we thought, what's the difference?
No, this
So
is,
it being a-
this is what I got off the internet as being
No, I mean,
passed.
in what you have in the staff report tonight, it's not there.
Right.
Right.
But I think if I understand the request or direction, you want to make sure that 50% cap still applies
Right,
to this, I guess, exception, if we call it.
right.
Okay. I think we can tighten up the language there. That provision is still there, but I think we can make sure that those provisions are tied together.
Yeah, because that's what was approved by city council.
Correct.
So I mean, it's not changing, I give you that, but it would have been nice to see that because it kind of reads the whole thing together
Right,
for us.
clarifying
It
that.
didn't have to be in blue or red or crossed out. It could have just been there, like there's other sections in the staff report that are there
Okay,
or not there.
thank you.
Yeah.
Clarifying that's.
Yeah.
Any other comments, thoughts? See none. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this subject? See none. Is there anyone online?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
John
Oh.
and Chrissy from the IJ.
Hi, Chrissy. Okay, so let's have a motion for amending the zoning code as conditioned. Do you have it all?
Yeah. We were just clarifying the direction on the JADUs and it's two ADUs. You get to pick either
get an
only two
addition-
units. You pick what type.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then the other question is that we don't have this benefit in the JADU section. Can we add that to the JADU section
And up to 600 square feet.
and up to 600 square feet?
Yes.
Although would you, to keep it equitable across the different types, would you have the ability to increase the size of your JADU?
We are by 100 square feet.
That's 600? That brings up to 600?
Yeah. And I think that's sufficient for an JADU.
Does the language in this section need to be tweaked, though?
Yeah, it
Yeah, so
does.
it will be. So just as conditioned, we'll cover that.
So I think the question is whether whether you're gonna see a further version of the ordinance. Is that the question, Vice Chair Johnson?
Well, I don't know what the process is. Would it come back to us?
I don't think we need to have it come back to us. I think we can condition it that I look at it before it goes on to city council.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the commission can move to approve it with those amendments,
Yeah.
subject to Chair Carapet's final review,
yeah, that way we,
if everyone's comfortable with that.
so it can go to the June meeting.
Okay.
City council June meeting,
And yeah, I guess see it before then.
and I'll see it before then. This will be on the June city council. Mhm. Mm.
You want a motion?
Can we do a motion now?
Yeah, that'd be
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Can I have a motion, please, for the,
I move that we recommend the city council adopt the draft zoning amendments, chapter 19.79, accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units as conditioned.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. That's good.
Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.